Alright, so this video is the generalizability of surveys, experiments, and observation study. So, really what we want to do, our learning target, I can differentiate between observations, experiments, and surveys. So we've already looked at all three of them. Let's just look a little more in depth at it. So generalizability and types of conclusions that can be drawn. Generalizing to the general population means when individuals are drawn from the general pop, then inferences to the general pop can be made. So this applies to observational studies and surveys. Okay? Or you could generalize the cause and effect relationship, which means when treatments are randomly assigned, causal relationships between explanatory and response variables can be drawn. This applies to experiments. Alright, but everything has limitations. So it is difficult to identify causal relationships in observational studies because it is difficult to control for other variables. Control for other variables. It is difficult to generalize to the population from experiments because experimental units randomly are a random sample. Rarely are a random sample of the population. So those are the limitations to those. Alright, so let's just look at some sample questions you might see. A researcher wishes to test a new drug developed to treat hypertension, which is high blood pressure. A group of 40 hypertensive men and 60 hypertensive women is to be used. The experimenter randomly assigns 20 of the men and 30 of the women to the placebo and assigns the rest to the treatment. The major reason for separate assignment for men and women is that A, it is a large study with 100 subjects. B, the new drug may affect men and women differently. C, the new drug may affect hypertensive and non-hypertensive people differently. D, this design uses matched pairs to detect the new drug effect. E, there must be an equal number of subjects in both the placebo group and the treatment group. So think about those. Take 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. And I would choose B. The new drug may affect men and women differently. So that's the reason for separating them into men and women. Okay, so if your question asks about, what's the major reason for separating men and women, then your answer needs to be about men and women. Okay, so that's my hint for that one. Alright, so look at B. Automobile brake pads are either metallic or non-metallic. An experiment is to be conducted to determine whether the stopping distance is the same for both types of brake pads. In previous studies, it was determined that car size, small, medium, large, is associated with stopping distance, but car type, sedan, wagon, coupe, is not associated with stopping distance. The experiment would best be done A, by blocking on car size, B, by blocking on car type, C, by blocking on stopping distance, D, by blocking on brake pad type, or E, without blocking. So take 3 seconds, think about it. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I would pick A because the question says, where does it say? In previous studies, it was determined that car size is associated with stopping distance. So that's why in my answer choice, I picked car size. So just reading carefully. All right. So for these, we're going to read each scenario and decide if it would be most useful to collect information about an experiment, a survey, or an observational study. So number 1, does listening to music with earphones for more than 1 hour per day affect a person's hearing? So I would say, there's really 2 things you could do. You could say experiment, but I would just say observational study. But if you put experiment, I would totally... Yes, I understand why you could do that. But I picked observational study because the treatment can cause harm and you have to use observational study. So you don't want to like it's an ethical thing. You don't want to like give a treatment that's going to hurt somebody. So I don't want to do a study that's going to cause damage to people's hearing. That's why I would just make this one an observational study. So number 2, do people who consume 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C each day as a dietary supplement have lower cholesterol levels than people who do not consume vitamin C supplements? I think this one would best be benefited by an experiment. And if you had like a treatment group and a control group, you're not going to kill anybody with vitamin C, so ethically that's good. Alright, let's look at these last ones. I'm going to let you actually try these ones. So take a few minutes, pause the video, see what you can do. Tell me if you think a survey, an observation, or an experiment would be best for these. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, so for number 3, I think a survey would be best. Just because you're just seeing how effective they were. You've already taken the medicine in the past, so just a survey to see what people said. 4, I think an observational study would be best. We don't want to not give people medicine because ethically that would be wrong. They might die. Number 5, I picked survey because you're just asked if pizza should be added to the menu or not. And then 6, I said observational study. And when it says explain, as long as you explain with full sentences, the English language, a coherent thought, you're good. Alright, let me know if you have any questions about those.